fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
So, how many trailers did you guys see before Nope?
A lot. Thankfully, we didn't get a Nope trailer in front of Nope. I would have lost my mind.
I'm glad that I've never seen the full-length Nope trailer.
It is a good thing because they do ruin a lot.
No, I didn't think so at all. That's so funny. No, because in the end, I was like, they show you some stuff in that second trailer, but you have no context for what it actually means in this story. It does like what you see in the trailer doesn't mean what you think it means. So
regardless, I was like, the Star Child at the end of 2001, like just innocent. And
wow.
I haven't seen any of this before. Wow.
Yeah. Well, you better stay off our Facebook page because last week I actually brought up the fact that we had not seen anything on Black Panther 2. I forgot about San Diego Comic-Con. This thing hasn't gone on for 2 years. I forgot completely about it. And guess what? They dropped a trailer. It's up on our Facebook page. Don't go there, Jim.
An actual
trailer. Coogan came out, introduced it. It looks glorious. I will say that I am very, very excited for this. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And we'll get into a little bit of the news concerning some of the stuff that came out at San Diego Comic-Con. We could spend an entire hour just on the reveals, but we'll hit the highlights and then move on. We got plenty to talk about here.
I really wish that I noted down the handle of this particular Twitter user, but I was on Twitter yesterday, and Twitter's all over Comic-Con.
Yeah,
and
I can imagine.
And posting the latest updates. And somebody gave a reveal because there's a bunch of titles have been released by Marvel, the Multiverse Saga, and a few others. And so we've been seeing on Twitter these logos that are posted by various users after they grab them from wherever, Marvel puts them. And somebody grabbed the logo of the old Godzilla Marvel Comics series, the cover logo,
right,
and put right underneath it. And it had the Marvel Studios logo above it saying coming 2024. And I almost lost my mind.
Well, if it's on the internet, it must be true, right? So would you be excited if that was an animated or just that Marvel was doing
anything? If they, if Kevin Feige came and was, just talked me through a story, I would be excited.
I mean, not everyone here is excited for the legendary take on this creature, but I'm enjoying what they're doing.
And speaking of, I don't want to step all over your news, but also this is true. Kurt Russell, Wyatt Russell are now confirmed for this MonsterVerse show that's coming to Apple.
Really?
Yeah.
That I didn't see.
But I'm the only one who has Apple, right?
Not for long.
Yeah, well, all right, so I'll be the odd man out.
I was going to ask what trailers you guys saw before the movie.
Oh, you did. You did ask us a question before. I did see the Bodies.
Yep, that was a newer version of the trailer.
Pete Davidson. I don't know if I can look at him on screen.
Yeah, he's not the. I don't want to go see a Pete Davidson movie just on principle. I understand your take now on Brad Pitt. It's like Pete Davidson.
But I think she's basing that on his acting abilities, not necessarily. He looks like John Cryer's love child. But what else did we see?
And he says right in the trailer. Yeah. Well, it's too obvious that I'm the killer. I'm like, yeah, you wouldn't be in the movie if you weren't the killer. So I'm putting my money on that.
You're putting your money right down. It's him. He's the killer.
See, now my husband thinks it's just going to be like April Fool's Day.
That's the first thing I thought of. That's exactly what I thought of. That would have been perfect pairing.
Just speaking of that, I saw that for the very first time just maybe 2 months ago.
What?
Really?
Yeah.
I did see that.
How
in the
did you get
theater.
through the 80s?
I don't know. It just looked too goofy to me. It was like it never appealed.
You know what I
And
love about that is the movie poster where the girl's hair is tied into a noose. Like you just see her back facing the other cast members.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that is what I remember of that movie.
We saw Bodies. We saw this Ray
Yep.
Fiennes movie called The Menu.
Yes. Yeah, it's like Gordon Ramsay gone amok. That looks interesting. That's we also saw the one that you were talking about with Chris Pine.
Don't worry, darling.
Yes,
Don't worry,
correct.
darling.
Yeah.
I really want to see that.
That could be aliens. That could be a number of things. I've seen that trailer. I think there's 2 trailers now that
Yeah.
I've seen for that.
Yeah, again,
But it
And-
doesn't really
Show me.
give anything away.
No. But this is one of those movies where, well, even Nope, when that teaser trailer dropped, I wasn't really prepared for it. So it's like I wasn't in the mode to shut my eyes,
Mhm.
So same thing with this,
Mhm.
I had no preconceived notions. I didn't know what it was. So I'm going to watch the trailer. So this is maybe a rare instance where the trailer is actually making me more interested. Usually
Yeah.
it gives too much away, but that's not the case here. I don't believe.
Yeah, I think it's very intriguing because I think already, like, you're trying to just watching the trailer, your instinct is to try to solve the mystery, right? To try to figure out like what exactly it is.
You Perot over there?
And that's the kind of thing that brings you to a movie,
That's what all trailers should be. That's what
Yeah.
all trailers should be.
And we saw the Halloween Ends trailer.
Yes.
And then somebody in my theater, another one
Like, wasn't it obvious
Like,
that there was going to
yeah.
be
Probably
another
never
one?
even saw the second one.
again.
The second one's just a huge setup for this movie.
And then once the title is revealed, it's not much of a reveal because we all knew what the title was.
right.
Once the title's revealed at the end, yeah, right, he says.
It's great.
You know
That's
what?
false advertising.
He's not wrong because good horror franchises and even bad ones never die.
Michael Myers never dies.
The most interesting thing I thought was I had seen this article saying, oh, there's going to be an exclusive preview of the Oppenheimer movie
Oh,
before Nope. And I was all excited. And it's like really a real teaser. Like there's really nothing to
There's
it.
there's
But all
just
you
like a
need to do-
fireball. Yeah,
But all
that's
you
it.
need to do is slap Nolan's name on the front of that, and I'm in the theater. Like
Well,
that.
that's-
You don't need to tell me. I know who Oppenheimer is.
But that angered me more so than the Regal
because you
Girl
didn't realize that it
because
was
I
just
thought
a-
it was Nope.
I know.
I'm like
yeah.
another trailer because the Universal logo came up. I'm
Yeah.
like, here we
Yep.
go. Okay,
Yeah.
trailer's done. Regal
Movie
Girl
starting.
done. The movie's starting.
That would actually
No.
make more sense than opening your real movie with a damn maniacal chimp.
Oh, wait.
Is
So
this another trailer?
before we talk about Nope, I
Nope.
want a very big warning for our listeners. You
Yeah.
cannot talk about this movie without spoiling it.
We are going to spoil the hell out of this.
So-
And it's got very specific plot events, things that you don't see coming when
Mhm.
you're in the movie for an hour. So if you're going to see this movie and you're for some reason banking on our opinion before you see it, don't.
No, yeah. Well,
I
think we always
appreciate
say
that, but please go
Well,
see
I
it
really
and then
want
come
to
back.
see this,
Yeah.
but let's see what the TMI.
I really,
has to
really,
say.
really want people to see this movie and judge for themselves because we'll get into this, but I think this is a movie that is dividing people because of especially because of the types of endings that they like. And I want
well,
people to
let's see.
decide for themselves.
There's 3 of us here, so what are the odds that one of us didn't like it?
I have a sense of who it is already.
1 out of 3 are the
Yeah.
odds.
1 out of 3. Okay.
I just want to say up front, I don't know what you guys are doing this afternoon, but I'm going to see this movie again.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're going to hold a professional discussion on Nope for anybody's that
You're gonna
wants to
dissect it
come
and actually
in
tell
Chicago
everybody
at some
exactly-
coffee shop
That's true.
by you, right?
Yeah, I could
You know what?
definitely do that too.
I would actually be a part of that. I think this movie is worthy of discussion.
You need a monocle to join, Jeff. Do you have a
Ooh,
monocle?
I don't have a monocle.
Mm,
I got a monkey hat.
Speaking of monkeys, wait, before we get there, what kind of news do we have this week?
Well, you kind of tipped into it a little bit with the San Diego Comic-Con. There's a lot of stuff that dropped. Again, we could spend an entire episode talking about all these reveals because we haven't had one in 2 years. And I think it's been even longer than that since Marvel has shown up at Hall H. But they were back in full force. We not only got as you mentioned, the big, huge wall, Kevin Feige came out. Phase 5, which is referred to as the multiverse saga, which I think we could all kind of guess whether or not, hopefully they do have a game plan, because right now in phase 4, it does not look like that. But there were some trailers dropped. Obviously, we mentioned the Wakanda Forever. The big thing I took away, which is November 8th, 2024. It is officially confirmed. Fantastic Four. That's big. So let casting speculation run amok. And we not only have one, but two Avengers movies on the slate. King Dynasty, which comes out in May 25, and then Secret Wars, November of that year.
Okay.
So we're getting two Avengers movies in the same year.
That is, they're doubling down on this stuff. So,
is it going to be like a part 1 and part 2? Like
that's
Infinity
not the
War
way
and Endgame?
It could very well be. I would like to think you're not going to.
I assume one's going to tie in to the other somehow.
Yeah. And I think they're leaning into the newer version of the Secret Wars that came out a couple years ago, not the one that we grew up with.
Not the Beyonder.
Yeah. Would you like to see him with his bedazzled jacket?
Well, he didn't have one in the first Secret Wars. He never saw him.
Oh, really? Wow.
That was Secret Wars 2.
Where he had the big shoulder pads.
He became like a cross between David Hasselhoff and Michael Jackson.
Right. Yeah. Walking Dead, we know it's in the last season, and I know we have not talked about this.
Is that still on?
Not only is it still on, but do you remember they were talking about these Rick Grimes standalone movies? They quote unquote killed him off years ago. I think in that episode 2, where we actually talked Close Encounters, we opened up the episode talking about the season finale of Walking Dead. It has been confirmed that Michonne and Rick Grimes will both be returning in a spin-off show. Not a movie, but an actual weekly show. Enough. There's still got to be an audience. I mean, at one point, this was like the biggest TV show on the planet. So there's still got to be an audience out there. AMC, everyone's scrambling for their Game of Thrones TV series. Keanu Reeves was out and he was talking Berserker, which I probably don't know if you guys, it's a comic book he wrote, but now it looks like it's going to be a Netflix series. Logan and Deadpool, both rated R movies, just dropped on Disney Plus. And people are already losing their minds. I think there's some conservative group that's already at the Magic Kingdom gates with their pitchforks.
Okie dokie.
But also, you can choose, can't you, to have that kind of content?
Well, I would also like to think, just like Netflix, that you have parental control.
Because now I have to key in a password to get into, because it asked me when they started dropping R-rated movies, do you want this unrestricted
access?
Yeah. And then it made me set up a password. So I have to enter it every time.
So if your son, who is underage, goes on to Disney and he chooses not to click on his icon, but to click on your icon,
There's a password request.
He would still have to put in a password.
Yes, he would.
So there are parental controls in place, and yet people are still up in arms that this is available on a family platform.
They just don't like the even idea of it. That's all.
Or that they don't want to take the time to set up a password.
I don't know.
Apparently, these people have never watched one episode of The Simpsons, which has been on Disney Plus for a long time.
You bring that up. I mean, my son's 20 years old now, but go back 10, 12 years, all of his friends were watching Family Guy. And and anytime I talk to somebody, they're like, oh, it's a cartoon. It's on in the afternoon. And I'm like, have you ever watched this show? Just because it's a cartoon does not make it family friendly.
Right. There's a whole thing on Cartoon Network called Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Like they are cartoons for adults.
So anyways, those are the highlights coming out of San Diego Comic-Con today. Fantastic Four. That's the big one for me.
And didn't we also, I saw a picture of like The Rock in full Black Adam regalia.
I think he did. Yeah. He came up on stage. We don't talk DC movies. What are you talking about? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm bored already, actually.
Oh, you're on board or you're bored?
I'm waterboarded by DC.
Oh, you're waterboarded. Oh, I do have one more news item, and this ties back into your Elvis review a couple weeks ago. The actress who played Big Mama Thornton.
Yeah.
44 years old.
And she has such a great voice. Like,
yeah, see, I didn't see the movie, but I know immediately the two of you were like, she was phenomenal. This is like a shock. Shanka Dakura.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like if you read the article, she has two kids. Like she was found dead. They're just not that the initial article didn't seem to indicate foul play or anything, but yeah, just
44. That's
so young.
yeah, especially when you have kids. Yeah. The only other thing I'm going to bring up, Jim, you remember at the beginning of last episode, you threw out a plea for $5 reviews.
Did we get any?
Nope.
That's going to be a recurring theme this week.
Yeah.
Nope.
We're waiting to say that.
Nope. That was the one chuckle that in my screening every time they actually uttered the title of the movie. I had two guys behind me who thought that was the funniest thing in the world. 8 times, by the way, is what I counted.
You can't.
Well,
I had to do something with my time.
You know, I say everything now with the caveat, but if this is true that Jordan Peele named the movie with that in mind.
This whole idea that this is not a planet Earth is a fan theory. He has not come out and substantiated that at all.
He was anticipating audience reaction.
Yeah. Well, how many times you sit in the theater, especially like these horror movies, and you're like, "God, don't go in there. Don't go in there." That's it. I'm going to name this movie "Don't Go in There." Get out.
And to have the characters actually voice that, my theater was laughing every time they said it as well, because they're thinking the same thing.
Correct. I mean, she did, M did no, a couple times. No, throw an open there. No.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I love it that of all the nopes, my favorite one was when OJ was in the truck and he just opens the door a little bit, looks out and goes, nope.
No. My favorite was when the kids are dressed up as aliens in the stables.
That was the one scary part of this whole movie, by the way. You know what? If this took place in Texas, those kids would be on the front page in the homicide.
OJ would be in jail for assault because he punched one of those kids in the face.
Damn straight, I'd punch him in the face. Are you kidding me? If he had a gun, he would have gunned him down. You don't sneak up on some guy in his friggin' horse barn dressed in alien costumes. What are you, idiots? Morons. They deserve to get eaten.
I just want to say off the top, though, I knew right away that I would want a Jupiter's Claim t-shirt. So I went into Google and I typed in Jupiter's Claim t-shirt.
Yeah.
I did, but I also found an extremely cool website called Jupiter'sClaim.com.
Oh, man.
Which is a fake website for this theme park. And there's many cool effects on this website. So like you need to like go to each page, look at each page, and then wait a second because things happen.
Wait, is this like a Universal sponsored website? Okay.
Yeah,
see, this
official.
is the one thing I think that's missing. Remember, I mean, the early days of the internet, this was like just an extension of a movie's promotion was to go, you see a phone number and you'd be able to call it and it would be, voiced by whatever character or whatnot. That's pretty cool.
So the website, when you go to it, there's a little pop-up that says off the top, "Hello, former child actor and reality TV star Ricky Jupe Park here of Kid Sheriff fame. I'm thrilled to have you drift on into the dusty claim I've staked in these here parts. Jupiter's Claim is the bestest darn California Gold Rush theme park in the Santa Clarita, Lancaster area. Perfect for family outings, school groups, and birthday parties. Saddle up, pan for gold, and earn my proprietary jangle. And remember, you get what you get, and you don't get upset."
You get what you get is right.
And
I would not be going to that website.
And then you can actually play the game. You can get jangle and like weird things happen. You can go into the Winkin' Well. You can go into the bank. It's really cool, like super fun website. It's great.
Can I feed the horses to the aliens?
Well, talking about Jupiter's Claim is a much more real place. This is going to mean a lot more to people now that the movie's out and doing business. But Christina already mentioned that they have incorporated Jupiter's Claim into the Universal tour in Universal Studios Hollywood.
I find that weird.
Now that the movie is taking off, yes, this is a great idea because as Christina mentioned, this is the first time like a day and date opening of a part of this park has coincided with the release of the movie. But my question is now, having seen the movie, is it pre or post visitation?
Yeah, I wouldn't want it. It's like going to Westworld after it killed people. Like, oh yeah, no, I want to go there. Yeah.
I think that the use of the Jupiter's Claim Park is so interesting in this story, and like I know a lot of people are out there trying to like put all the pieces of this movie together and like, why did he include this or why did he include that? To me, it's sort of right in the front of the film where he has the quote from the Old Testament, and the last line is, "I will make a spectacle of you," and the idea of spectacle is like presence all throughout this film, and also the idea of like who provides the spectacle, who creates spectacle for us, right? And that ties back to the story of Gordy and Gordy's party, and like the price that the people who provide the spectacle pay. And the story of Jupe comes weirdly full circle because he survives a massacre, as a young child, and then he is, killed in a massacre.
I see your point, and I see how it's tied into that quote at the beginning. But I took it for, because there's a lot of talk about breaking animals and animals getting spooked, and the horse on the set and Gordy on the set, and then them treating this being as like a horse to be broken.
Yeah.
Now, just going back to the assumption that one of us did not like it, I almost counted myself as that 1 out of 3 because I had issues with Us. The whole plausibility question came up with me several times with Us, and it started to with Nope. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of leaps in logic.
It just grabbed me. At one point it just grabbed me and I just got taken along for the ride and I didn't care anymore that it wasn't entirely plausible. I stopped thinking about it because the movie did that to me.
But you couldn't do that for Black Phone.
No, I couldn't.
It's tough because, I get it. I get the, you open with this horrific scene with Gordy. You mentioned Gordy, and you're literally like, what is going on here? And that is the most horrific part of this entire story. And I get it. It really does kind of lean into the hubris of man, of thinking that we can control nature. And you bring it back to the horses and the fact that, they're horse wranglers. This is what they do for a living. It's a family legacy kind of a thing. And OJ does, when this creature shows up, he does realize you have to treat it like an animal. But, Jupe's story is interesting. I just think it doesn't pay off. He doesn't learn anything from it. If anything, he just kills more people.
Jupe, in that one monologue that he has, not when he's talking to his audience, but when he's got Otis in the office and he opens up that secret chamber, and it's like a shrine to his old TV show. And he starts talking about when they ask him point blank about the incident with Gordy, he starts talking about a sketch on Saturday Night Live.
Sketch.
So it's like he's one step removed from it.
He's PTSD. He was a kid.
That spectacle aspect, it's not really real if I'm watching it through a camera and so Otis and his sister trying to capture this on film, they're so preoccupied with getting it on film, the actual terror of it doesn't start to hit them.
They're missing the whole point of the story, which is that, you shouldn't be messing with this thing.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, they get a lesson in that when it comes and like spits blood and leftover gunk all over their house. They think, okay, we're out. We're not going to do this anymore at that point. But then they get pulled back in. But the thing about Jupe, I think, is that I think because he survived this massacre, that he thinks he can control the situation. Like, I was able to get out of this situation before. So now there's this alien here. And this is one of those things that, in retrospect, when you think about the movie, you realize that he's doing, so he's been buying these horses from the ranch, and OJ has this plan that he's going to try to get the horses back.
But the horses
they ain't coming back.
Right. But he, like, when he mentions this in the office, Jupe is kind of like, sure. Okay. And then later you find out it's because he's feeding the horses to the alien as part of a show that he's doing every week. And he thinks that he can control this creature. But I think that the reveal that he has this kind of this distant way of dealing with his trauma, even though it's obviously always present in his mind, like so present that he goes away, right? Like his wife comes into the office and she's kind of like rubbing his hand a certain way to almost like
bring him
wake
back.
him up
Yeah,
from
bring
like
him back.
wherever he's gone.
Yeah.
He keeps going back to this moment in his mind over and over and over. And yet he keeps all these artifacts of the event and he profits off of them. So it's like he's such an interesting character, and Stephen Yeun is
hinging his personality on it.
Stephen Yeun is such a good actor.
Yeah, I know. I think that his character is just there to kind of serve as an example of why this is wrong, why this is wrong for OJ and Emerald
and that's why I wish that he had survived to kind of become part of the Scooby Gang at the end that has to confront this alien. And he has to come to terms with the fact that what he's doing is no better than what was being perpetrated upon Gordy all those years ago. He just gets consumed with, if you're doing this for 6 months, every day, and you got people coming there. At what point is like someone coming out of there and going to tell their friends or their family, dude, you're never going to believe what I saw. The guy's selling alien dolls. He's selling alien masks. His rodeo jacket has a UFO or UAP on it. And yet no one knows that this is going on.
Well, this was the first time, right? This was like the debut of this whole thing.
That's not what I took it off. He's profiting off these aliens. He's been like in rehearsals is a way to put it with the aliens. I don't take that at all. I took
this was the first because he was doing I think for 6 months he was actually figuring out that he was feeding the horses to this thing. But this is the first time an audience has come to actually see this spectacle that he's put on. It's the debut of his show.
And there's that scene where Otis is looking down at Jupiter's claim, and like it does seem like there's a practice or rehearsal, something going on at that point, because you see the lights go out over the park, and then a second later Otis sees the you think it's a ship at first, but it's a creature. And I think that's one of the nice reveals of this story, is that it's, like I said, the preview does show this object and you just think it's a UFO, but then even if you've seen the trailer, it's not what you think it is.
No, I will say that the reveal, the creature reveal at the end is spectacular. It is a kaiju. It is just it is a giant air jellyfish, for lack of a better term.
There's some points of view of this creature before Otis, kind of tells the audience what it is, where you see the inside of it. It just looks like billowing balloons.
Yeah.
Where, it could be its throat passage or whatever. And then you also see this screen, which is in the middle of it, which maybe is its eye.
Yeah.
And so I assume it is its eye, because at the very end, it's blinking at the big inflatable cowboy, like they're having a stare off. I think where the movie got me was that scene at Jupiter's claim when the audience gets sucked up. And up until that point, I was very wary of it. Like, what is he trying to tell us here? Is this like his big statement that I'm supposed to be reveling in? But then as soon as that audience participation scene happened, I was hook, line, and sinker. I was along with it for the rest of the movie.
And I think that like it's one of the most horrifying scenes, because you see some of the people being sucked inside and they're just screaming. And then later, when it goes over the ranch, you can still hear them screaming inside.
But isn't that why we heard it earlier?
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, so it is eating people. It's eating horses. It's eating everything.
And just dropping their metallic objects, which is what happens to Keith David.
Yeah. How high?
And you actually see the blood splatters when at the very beginning. So you assume it's maybe one guy and it's emptying the contents of his pockets, or and unfortunately he's right in the path of the nickel that falls down.
The one thing there's so many things I liked about this movie. The one thing I really like is like Keke Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya bring such contrasting energies as siblings. And I feel like they have such a realistic relationship where it's like we're siblings and we love each other, but we don't necessarily like each other all the time.
Yeah, because he's the serious one. Like he just wants to, you see this horrific death of the dad, Keith David, by the way. And now he has to keep this whole thing afloat. She kind of comes in, she comes out, she comes in, she comes out. She's not really a part of this world.
Yeah. But then you find out that their dad pushed her out. that she wanted to participate. She wanted to be a part of it. So she
gave
always
away her horse.
Yeah. So she always felt like she was on the outside in like this triangle. And he's just thinking he can't let his father's legacy die. And this is how he's been raised. But yeah, he's so still. He's so quiet.
And to the point where it's a detriment, because it's like, am I the only one who wanted subtitles on this? There was times where I couldn't understand what he was saying. Yeah, I mean, I get it. That's your character. And he's kind of like, he just wants to do his thing. He doesn't want to be in front of these people showboating. He doesn't want to be part of this spectacle.
Exactly.
He's been raised to raise these horses, to train these horses. That's all he wants to do. But there are times when he turns his head away or he looks down while he's talking. And I really had a hard time understanding some of his dialogue.
I did as well, but I felt for him because he's thrust into that position with the unexpected death of his father.
Oh,
obviously,
no, I
his
agree
father
with you,
is the one.
But in the context of a movie,
took the reins.
You can still enunciate so that the audience understands what you're trying to get across.
Well, now you can
point.
Appreciate subtitles. Maybe
I know, right? In that moment, I'm like, damn it, Jim's right.
Yeah.
I need subtitles.
Jordan Peele said that Daniel Kaluuya is his favorite actor to work with. He said because he has such big, expressive eyes, and you can always see his emotions.
I think casting wise, I think spot on. Kiki is amazing. She really is a force of nature on screen.
Yeah.
And that opening speech that she gives during like, apparently she did that 14 times, and Peele's like, every time it was completely different. So she does bring a lot of energy to this movie.
And I like the contrast
to save it.
The contrast between them, like as siblings, like how their personalities are so different, and just all the like the different pulls of instincts. Every time she's like, we got to leave, he's like, I have horses here. I
have mouths to feed. Yeah.
I have stuff to do. I can't just leave this ranch. And he's like, and also I'm broke. So it's like, where am I going to go? This is my home, and she's like, let's just leave. So, I mean, I like that kind of pull, and I like the insertion of Angel into their family unit because he's like this guy who it's really a collection of like strange, damaged people, right?
Like I said, it's kind of like a makeshift Scooby gang. It's just you got to do what you got to do, and this is where I feel that Stephen Young's character needed to be a part of that by the end.
I don't know that he could have been. I feel that if you're gonna bring that story arc in, and you're gonna tie the two together, and you're gonna create these parallels, I just feel that character needed to learn something other than just getting consumed.
Well, I think he did learn something in the 2 seconds before.
It wasn't for me as the audience. I
made a mistake.
I felt,
but that's his point. That's the cautionary tale, right?
That's what I think too.
Now, what I loved about Otis is a real giveaway of his character. It made me question what time period this movie was taking place in. Was his ancient flip phone. The fact that he is so unwilling to join in the spectacles that he doesn't even have a new phone,
Well,
so I think that spoke just waves about his character. And because that was me for a few years. Like, I refused to catch up with technology.
I'm not going into the 21st century.
Yeah. But I like, again, like sort of the different energy that Angel brings when he comes into it, because like he talks about his girlfriend of 4 years who broke up with him, and he thought she was the one, and now it's like he has nothing to do with himself, so he's watching their video feed at the store,
which is a little creepy.
It is. And she calls him out on it. She's like, you shouldn't have done that.
It can't be a very busy location if that's all he's doing with his.
No, that was actually, I did read that is a real electronics store, Fry's, and it went out of business just before this movie opened.
Oh no.
Yeah. This movie could have saved them.
All their employees become your stalker after you make a purchase there.
And what is up with all these aliens? And we'll get into it with Close Encounters, where they just like to turn off lights. It's like, what are you doing?
I know. Well, this is a living being. How can it, that was one of the questions that was in the back of my mind. Well, it's not, a spaceship, but I just let it go. But I love the fact that in retrospect, the thing does move like a living being rather than a ship. It hides, It
changed shapes as well. I mean, it was changing its size, because there were times where it was chasing OJ and it looks like just a regular saucer. And then there's times where it's over the house and it's just mammoth. So, and again, we see the transformation at the end, which again is beautiful. I kind of wanted to see that creature a little bit more, but I get that, they want you to think that this is just a ship until OJ comes to this realization that this is an animal. And like what Jim said, that needs to be broken. He flashes back to the horse seeing its own reflection. And he's like, I'm not going to look at it. And that comes back into play at the end where they're trying to set up this A-Team style trap for it. And all of a sudden, like this motorcycle guy comes out of nowhere, and it's cool because his helmet looks like a spaceship. And you're like, who is this? Yeah. What is this? What is going on? And it really was nothing more than to give M a motorcycle to escape. That's all that device was there for.
I thought for a second, because the way that his dialogue was at the very beginning, that he was like a man in black on a motorcycle.
Yes. Yeah. Something. Bring in a whole other aspect. They can't be the only ones that know that this thing is out there.
Right. Well, that was the whole thing, though, when she was like, it's TMZ, and this guy was so insistent on going forward into it just to get the picture. And even as he's dying, he's saying, get my camera.
Which goes back to the idea of this spectacle. They're going after this Oprah shot. They're going, this is going to be their claim to fame. This is the world we live in now, where people live and breathe by, TikTok and all this other crap that at whatever cost. You think about these stupid kids that are killed falling off cliffs because they're trying to get that selfie, or they get bit by a freaking rattlesnake. This is the world we live in. I get what he was trying to do. I just don't think that it came across as clear as you need to.
Oh, I mean, I thought it was clear.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. Listen, I knew going in that you were going to love this regardless.
He would have had to have really fallen down on his face for me not to like this.
Listen,
hey, it happened last week with Love and Thunder.
And compared to Get Out, this is a distant third to me.
Really?
Absolutely.
You see, this was like number one. It shot up to the top of my Jordan Peele list.
That's cool.
Even though I didn't, I'm not so enamored with it that I didn't think there was anything wrong. I think it was a lot longer than it needed to be. I think the setup was too long.
I think the first act and the last act, the third act, are very slow. The middle is like gonzo, and then it just kind of peters out.
I think it's more atmospheric probably than people were anticipating.
Visually, it's very impressive. There are some nice camera shots. There are some, but Jim said there's lapse in judgment where you either just are in or you're not. There's a scene where M goes to Jupiter's claim and she steals one of the horse statues as a decoy. But these things are outside Jupiter's claims. Why wouldn't it have eaten it when they were sitting there?
I don't know.
Why just because it's out in the field, suddenly it's going to eat
maybe
it?
Because it's more obvious, that it's.
But it seems very aware.
Because there's trees around Jupiter's claim, so maybe.
So why didn't it go after the little wacky, funky balloon guys? While they're all they're all hiding from this thing, and yet somehow he's able to lay out 50 of these things as traps. And again, it's brilliant. It's fun. Lance Hendrickson, I guess, was busy, so they brought in this other guy.
I love Michael
cinematography.
Oh my gosh, him doing the most unbearable thing was him getting through One-Eyed Purple Eater. It was a one-eyed.
Yeah.
How annoying must be this guy living around him every day? You want eggs for breakfast? I'll make you some coffee.
I wanted him to get the money.
I was glad when he got eaten. He's like, it's the golden hour. Go on. Go get that shot. I don't want to hear you talk anymore.
He could have gotten this shot.
Because I love his voice.
I think there's a reason he's in the movies and we're not.
He's in The Crow. That's the first time I ever saw him. And he's also in Alien Resurrection, and he's been in a bunch of stuff over the years. He's sort of a character actor who's been out there. I've always liked his voice, and I think that was probably the reason why he's in this movie, is because he has that unique voice, and that he was going to sing Flying Purple People Eater.
I could have done with just one verse. He had to go for the second. He had to go for that chorus. Oh, come on, dude.
But the thing is, and I've talked about this before, is I love when directors take big swings. And
this is for the 2 blocks past the Green Monster. This is a really big swing.
I agree with that, because we talk about the fact that the studios get involved. You're bringing these big name guys, and a lot of times it gets watered down, it gets filtered. And kudos that they're just letting this guy do his thing. It didn't grab me. I literally walked out yesterday in the afternoon. I had to go to a retirement barbecue, and I found 2 people who had seen it, and they loved it. Everyone there loved it. And I'm not saying that it's not great. There's definitely some nice stuff going on there, and I can't even say my expectations were out of line. I just felt that the Gordy storyline was a little too disjointed. It just tie it back to Jupe and somehow.
I mean, I felt like it was tied in, but I don't think it was tied in a super obvious way. I think you had to like come to that conclusion yourself.
I don't think it was like I had to go home and like look up reviews or figure out, what's the ending of this movie. I just felt I got it. I got what you were trying to say. I just don't think that it was.
Yeah, I think a lot of this movie was kind of like giving you a lead and letting you kind of surmise the rest of it. I think a huge part of that, and I loved this about it, was, I'm going to keep going back to it because I think it's the centerpiece of the movie, was the Jupiter's Claim show where all the people get sucked up. All the things that you've seen up to that point, including that rehearsal that you hear in the nighttime.
Yep.
It suddenly dawns on you what is going on here, that he's been experiencing this night after night after night. When he says, oh, they're coming early, he's been doing this at a certain time every night. Right. And now that he thinks
I did miss that, I guess,
he's
really
got a schedule.
This was something that he's been doing for 6+ months.
And he's got this horse. And, I thought, oh, is there an alien, behind the curtain? Nope, it's a horse. He's going to let it go and he's going to watch it get eaten. And that's going to be the show.
Which is one of the movie posters, by the way. And you never see a horse get sucked up. Yeah. And that's the other thing, too, is that he breaks up these chapters with the horse's name.
But you do, don't you? You see it through the slats of the stable.
Ghost and Clover both get taken up. They jump out of the arena.
Because OJ is hiding in the stable and when the cyclone comes. And you see it through the slats.
There are some dark moments early on there. All right, I guess I missed it.
But yeah, so you surmise that it's not told to you.
Yeah.
But you figure it out that Jupe has been doing this to prepare for this show, and now he's going to get his spectacle. The cautionary tale is you can't lay claim to something like this.
But I think, I always talk about this. I like it when the movie doesn't feed everything to me. I like it when the movie doesn't tell me everything I'm supposed to feel and what I'm supposed to think, and that it lets you like draw conclusions, and like different people might draw different conclusions from what they see. To me, that's like a great cinematic experience. And like there's a lot of references to other movies in this. Jordan Peele is a fan. He does this in all of his movies. And there's some very obvious Jaws references, especially at the end, with the big pop.
Yeah, that's straight up Jaws.
One of the things I've always loved about Jaws is that there's a lot of stuff that goes unsaid in that movie. There's things that you never find out about, right? And I always say, if you watch Jaws now and you think about the famous scene right before the Indianapolis speech where they're all talking about their scars, and Brody kind of lifts up his shirt and you can see a scar under his shirt, and then he sort of pushes it back down and he doesn't say anything. And I always say that if that movie was made now, some studio exec would be like, well, you need to explain that. Yeah. So you either he would tell a story or there would be like a flashback to the event so that the audience knows what happened, right? But instead it's just there and you're just allowed to speculate about what that is and what that means and why he doesn't want to talk about it, And I think that this movie does a lot of that. There's a lot that you can sort of interpret for yourself, and you can move into that space as the audience. This is what actually I try to do in a lot of my books.
Yeah, Christina Henry School of Ambiguity.
I try to leave imaginative space for the reader, and I think that Jordan Peele is trying to leave some degree of imaginative space for the viewer. I think I would rather see something new, something original that maybe doesn't necessarily succeed on every level, than see like a successful superhero film that like tells me everything I'm supposed to feel every second of the film.
Well, I'm just going to say, to your point, that scene with Brody is not integral to the storyline. It's integral to what he is as a character. But I don't know. I walked away from this, unfortunately.
I also want to say that I love Michael Abel's scores. He also scored Get Out and Us for Jordan Peele, and the Us score is one of my favorite all-time scores, and I love his score for this. I think it's really effective. Like he's being asked to do a lot of different things with the music in this movie, and I think he does it really well. Also, just a side thing, so Terry Notary plays Gordy. He's a movement coach. He did all the movement coaching for the actors on the new Planet of the Apes movies.
Yep.
He's worked on a ton of films.
Yep.
I listened to a little interview with Jordan Peele, and he talked about like some of the little movie tricks they did for that scene. So they scaled up all of the furniture by 30%. So that
To make
Terry
it look
would
like
look
he
smaller.
looked about yeah, because it's motion capture. It
Yeah.
is flawless. I mean, I immediately went and looked that up because you can't bring in a real chimp. You can't have a movie like this and try and make that message.
Yeah.
That you can't control nature and then bring in a real chimp for that scene.
Once the movie actually seeps into you and you're thinking about it afterwards, there's a lot of correlation between that Gordy scene and the scene at Jupiter's Claim, because when it pans back from the Gordy scene, the studio audience is gone. They've deserted the cast. Yeah. The directors, the cameramen, they've jetted. There's nobody there. Maybe Jupe could have seen his audience get sucked up, you know? And so he, again, is the only one left, but he gets sucked up too.
I mean, because it is very heartbreaking because you see this chimp just lose its mind over a balloon. And that does tie back into the end with the balloon that kills the creature. It Jupe's balloon at that.
Yeah.
So there are lyrical little ties that come back around, but the chimp is unaware of what it really did. It just snapped. It kills these people, and then it sees Jupe underneath the table, and it comes over and immediately wants to fist bump him. Right. So it doesn't know, like it's an animal. And it doesn't realize what it did. It doesn't know what just happened, what just transpired. And again, the alien never realizes that I just ate these people. Maybe I should have some remorse.
That's such a horrifically sad scene, too, because you can see that Gordy's trying to communicate something. He's like pointing, and then he's, trying to communicate with Jupe. Like he's signing, he's doing different things. He's trying to
which is what happened to family. That's what he was signing. What happened to family? So he was unaware. It's like a blind rage, but you do realize that Jupe does not see him eye to eye. And that does tie back in with the fact that, what OJ is saying, don't give it eye contact.
Yeah.
If that little bit of the tablecloth was not there to block his view, he could have easily been another victim.
And there's also a lot there, I think, sort of underneath the surface about like tokenism in Hollywood. Like even Keke Palmer's character says to Jupe, like, weren't you that Asian kid who was on that show? Like he's defined by his race, he's defined by his color. There's just I think there's a lot going on under the surface of this film.
Bear. Yeah. That it's interesting that you bring that aspect up, because reading, and I don't know what part he was considered for, but Jesse Plemons turned down a part. And I'm wondering who he would have been cast as.
I would have loved him as Angel.
Antlers? Would it have been? I think he was too old for Angel.
Well, he's just a guy who works at an electronics store.
That would be a very sad story if Jesse Plemons got cast as Angel. That's supposed to be a kid. That's supposed to be a kid. I can only think he would either be Antlers or Jupe. These are the only two characters I can think that he would be playing. But I
guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
I still recommend, if you're on the fence, go see this in the theater. See it with people. Make up your own freaking mind. There's a lot to like. I just felt that it didn't hold together as well as you guys did.
I'm not going to say that it held together completely. It just took me.
And that's what movies are supposed to do, right?
There's a
point where you just give up and you just go along for the ride. And we do talk about this every week. I mean, we nitpicked Thor last week. It depends on your mood walking in.
Some people stand by Love and Thunder.
And that's fair. I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong because you liked or disliked a movie that I didn't like or dislike.
I can't exactly 100% tell you. Well, I could make an attempt. I'm not going to do it here. Why I felt the way I did about Black Phone, and why I felt the way I did about why this one took me and Black Phone never did.
Yeah. And like you said,
that's the way it works.
You bring up Us, which is I went kicking and screaming to watch this. Yeah. You guys have dragged me into the genre. And again, I was completely enraptured. I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. Yeah. Are there plot holes? Does it wait, where do these people come from? What's going on here? But you just go along for the ride. And it's like, all right, this is the picture. This is the painting that this guy is making.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to step back and I'm just going to appreciate it. Why did you put a flower over there? Why is there a castle? Whatever. You're the artist. You make your own interpretation. That's all I got to say. Cowboys and Aliens would have been a fun pairing.
With this.
Yeah. Close Encounters isn't exactly, a spot on.
No, but you know what?
Pairing.
I'm going to tell you right now, you're sitting here and you're lauding Jordan Peele for his artistic vision. And there is a reason that this movie sits at the top. Close Encounters, second movie out of the gate for Spielberg, thing of beauty.
He did Duel.
He did Duel. You're right.
Well,
All right.
Sugarland Express.
Cinematic.
Right?
All right. I'm going to say theatrical. Duel is a major.
Did Sugarland Express come in between Jaws and Close Encounters?
No, I think it was pre-Jaws.
It was
Before Jaws?
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, either way, it would still be his third movie if you don't count Duel, right?
Right.
So what's interesting about that, I was thinking about this because it's like Jordan Peele is following some like auteur script, because Shyamalan's third movie was Signs, and it was like a slight deviation from the kind of movies he'd made previously. It didn't have like the overt twist or that kind of thing, and this is a little different from Jordan Peele's first two movies. And I think that Close Encounters is a much quieter movie than the kind of movies that Steven Spielberg had made before.
Yeah.
It's sort of interesting if you think about it, as each of them had made like an alien movie as their third movie. And then what are each of them exploring in those films? And I think the one thing that comes through in all three, which is really interesting, is about family and connection,
or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like a band not wanting to repeat themselves album after album.
Oh, absolutely.
Yet at the same time, it should be recognizable as that band. So, a good filmmaker, you're not going to want to go and see the same movie over and over and over again. Otherwise, you're Michael Bay.
No, and I think that's exactly that's exactly what happened to Shyamalan, which is he got pinned into that twist ending, and I think he really kind of hung his hat on that, and he should not have. He should have just. I still think he's got great stuff in him. And again, Jordan Peele, the next movie that comes out with his name at the top of it, I will go see it because I think that the guy has a lot to say.
Yeah,
I do, and I think that he's an artist there's not many of them like that out there right now that are given the platform to be able to make their own movies, to make their own whatever vision that they have.
I agree. So with that in mind, out of 5 buckets, what are we going to bequeath upon Nope?
Well, I am the lowest on I am sticking with my 3 buckets.
That's pretty good. I think 3 is pretty good considering that you didn't seem to love it very much. So
see, I don't. Maybe I'm just coming across as being a negative nanny here. I didn't not like it. I just felt that there was missed opportunities. That's all. I wanted to see more of the Jupe character. I wanted to see that storyline hew a little bit closer to what was going on in the real world right now with these other characters.
I'm again going to say that I think the setup was too long, but then it's got me in that scene where the alien is finally revealed and it eats up the audience. I'm going to go 3 3/4.
I still, of all of his movies, I still like Us the best because for me, just visually, I think it's unbelievably beautiful. And I think I gave Us like a zillion buckets. So I'm going to say for me, this is a 4, but it could probably inch up over time. I mean, I'm going to see it again.
Like anything, your opinion changes.
Right.
I just feel like it needs another look, and I want to give it another look with the whole context of the film in mind.
I think it'll hold together better. For a second time. Now, knowing going in what we're given up front, you're putting it in context before you're even.
Speaking of that, I should watch Tenet again. I've not given that another chance.
You really should watch that again because
I really wrote that off. I should really watch that again.
But Nolan's a good example, and Jordan Peele actually talks about Nolan. He used Nolan, Hoyt van Hoytema, who's worked with Nolan on Dunkirk and Interstellar. He was his DP, and he used him for this film. And he said he wanted him because he admires Nolan's work specifically, and the way that Van Hoytema can really achieve like a different look, like an ambitious look for the film.
And that's another director that you see his name at the top of that marquee. You know you're going to get something special, and he has a very specific voice. Every one of his movies looks different, and yet at the same time you kind of know it's a Nolan film. But
he's going to try to give you something you've never seen before. Yeah. And whether you think it succeeds or fails, he's trying to do something new every single time. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Interstellar. I need to go back and rewatch it as well. I love Jim's going to watch
Tenet. No, I know it's lauded, but
Nolan homework at the end of this episode.
But I think that, I like those directors that challenge you. I want to feel challenged. I want to feel confronted when I go to a film. That's what I want from this experience. And I think that Jordan Peele has given me that every time I've seen one of his films.
All right. So go see Nope and tell us what you thought about it.
That would be nice. It would be nice if we got some feedback. Yep, yeah. I agree with you guys. I don't agree with you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's go to the concession stand and try not to get sucked up and come back for Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yes, sir. May I help you?
I'd like 2 of those, please.
Hot dogs? Yes, sir.
And 3 of those, and 1 of those, and 5 bars of these, and a cup of that nice hot liquid.
Coffee. Coming right up.
Oh, and 2 bags of those peculiar white coffee material.
You mean our crunchy popcorn? Shall I wrap that for you, sir?
Oh, that's all right. My saucer's just outside.
They come from miles to enjoy our intermission.
All right, we're back, and we're talking Close Encounters. Now, again, we mentioned this last week, that this is a repeat for us. We've already talked about this, but we did not give it its full due the first time around. And it's been long enough. So just anybody that's listened to our second episode, our first quote unquote conversation about Close Encounters, be warned that I may subconsciously repeat the same jokes or the same comments.
Well, you got to throw me in there as well, because I do have a repeat joke or 2. But I will tell you, we only devoted maybe 10, 15 minutes to Close Encounters. We really did not dig too deep.
Because we didn't
really have a format back then, to be honest with you.
And the conversation wasn't really engaging enough to keep talking about.
No, unfortunately.
And I wasn't here, so I will not be repeating any jokes.
No.
This is a whole new conversation for me.
All right, so Close Encounters. Now, let me start off by saying, of course, this is a hallmark of 70s cinema and of Steven Spielberg himself. This is very high up in his oeuvre. Now, when this was released, it's actually a Christmas movie, believe it or not. It came out in select cities in November of 1977, and it released wide in December of that year. It was originally set for a summer release. Can you imagine if this went head to head against Star Wars?
It would have lost.
It would have.
Tragically. Yeah.
And Spielberg was fighting for it to come out the following summer. Now, this is really a summer movie to me. This makes me just like Jaws. It makes me think of, indoors air conditioning. I can't picture going to see this like in a snowstorm, But saying that, as a kid, when this was released, originally, I was 7 years old. And this was in the height of In Search of, whatever movies Peter Graves was narrating about alien abduction. So there was a lot of speculation out there. There was a lot of UFO talk. There was a show called, I think, Project Blue Book.
Blue Book, yeah.
That was on TV.
And a show actually called UFO.
So let me tell you, that the commercials and the ad campaign for Close Encounters terrified me. All I needed to see was that road going into nowhere and the light coming down at the end of the road. And those were the aliens waiting for me. Whenever I was actually traveling with my parents at night, I was afraid that I was going to get abducted by aliens because of the Close Encounters ad campaign. But this terrified me, and I had no desire to see it because I thought it was a horror movie. And that's really, if you watch those commercials, it plays like a horror movie. That's what I thought this was. And it wasn't until years later that I actually saw the thing. I faced my fear and I watched it.
You're like, what?
It's like a warm fuzzy movie. This isn't scary at all.
I don't know about warm and fuzzy.
Well, wait a second. It was. They really tried to make you scared of the aliens leading up to the ending, especially when Barry's abducted. But yeah, in the end, it's it's all roses and smiles and kumbaya. So I've accepted it.
Though, like the scenes with Barry's abduction, like poor Jillian absolutely gets it the worst. Like she's really terrorized. Whatever the aliens intend, they're terrorizing her, right? Like they're trying everything they can to get into her house.
They're jerks.
The scene, like that's such a great sequence too, because there's so many like really nice sort of little low budget tricks that they use to try to generate the terror, right? The ash falling in the fireplace and the screws unscrewing in the vent.
Think of it from the aliens' point of view. Like they're coming down the chimney. She closed the vent. Why would she do that? We just want to play with Barry for a little bit. Let's go up.
I don't know.
Let's try the window.
I still don't.
Why did she shut the window? What's the matter with her? And they're not like setting the vacuum on her. It's just their ship. It's causing these disturbances. They have no control over that.
Again, with these aliens,
I see it from their point of view.
I still don't believe that they're benign. We still don't know. Why are you abducting people and then bringing them back 30 years later?
Right.
Why are you taking airplanes and then leave it in the desert? You freaking put it back where you found
it. And maybe in the time you found it too. That would be nice for their families. Right?
No, they're probably they're jokesters, right? Like, why don't we leave it in the desert? Imagine what they're going to say when they find it.
Yeah. No, I think that these aliens are jerks. And unfortunately, our protagonist is like, he abandons his family.
This is the problem I have with it. This is not something you think about as a young person watching this. All.
Right.
But as a father, poor Terry Garr, she is given the worst role. She is not understanding. She shuts him down at every instance. The first night, something obviously happened to him. He's got the sunburn that goes halfway down his face. I want to show you something. I want to share this experience with you. She takes him out there. First thing she says, don't you think I'm taking this very well?
Well, I mean,
he gives him no chance.
He becomes completely unhinged. Yeah, but then she hits on him. Then she's like, remember when we used to come out here for romantic? And she does try to like have an intimate moment with him, and he's eyes in the sky.
Right.
The guy's gone. The guy has lost his mind over this experience. And I think, why are these aliens doing this? Why are you sending these cryptic messages to quote unquote nobodies? This guy abandons his family. He loses everything. Like those kids are in therapy forever. My dad's gone. My dad just left.
But Spielberg does make it very easy for the audience to really side with him for leaving. Because there's even that scene where Terry Garr, she gets, first of all, she's the one that gets fired over the phone. They don't even talk to him. And then she says,
so that's her fault.
Then she says, I'm not going to get a job. You're going to get a job.
Well,
so she's saying
you
these
lost
things.
your job over this.
By the time they drive off, you're thinking to yourself as a viewer, well, let's clean our hands of them.
I don't know what else they would do though. Like, a lot of people have like mocked that mashed potato scene and it's become sort of like a funny meme, but that scene is devastating.
Yeah. And think of all these other people that are doing the same thing
at the table and his kids are watching him.
It's terrifying.
The look on their oldest son's face is a heartbreaker. Like his whole family is broken apart at that moment.
Dad has lost his freaking mind.
And you have to understand from her point of view, like I would do the same thing. I would be like, you're not stable. I cannot have our children here in this situation where they are not potentially not safe because you were acting.
Yeah, I agree with
but
that.
It's not his fault. I mean, like I said, go back to these aliens. What are you doing? And again, he can't be alone. There's plenty of people who probably had this experience that never made it to Devil's Tower.
Yeah. And the fact that and I never noticed this until this viewing, she's covertly, even before any of the crazy stuff happens, cutting out the newspaper articles that corroborate his story and throwing them out.
Yeah, it was surrounded by a Star Wars article, by the way.
Right.
There's a couple of those Star Wars references in here, by the way.
And Spielberg has said, there's like a ton of special features on the Blu-ray that I have, and it has all 3 versions of the film.
Yeah, my Blu-ray had all 3 as well.
This blew my mind, like, because I was watching this, like, I remember a scene that is not in this, you know. So I've probably only ever seen the special edition.
The special edition is 2 minutes shorter.
Even though the special edition is shorter, he took things out of the theatrical and put other stuff back in. Yeah. Like the whole scene where they're talking about going to see Pinocchio. That's not in the theatrical version.
Which is a recurring theme, because we have this shows you Spielberg's mentality at the time, which is when you wish upon a star does factor in to John Williams' theme. It's there in the special edition. When he walks inside the ship, he's playing it. It's part of the orchestral. You got the little spaceship that looks like Tinkerbell zipping around.
Like the Pinocchio theme runs through because nobody believes him, right? He's a boy who lied. He's and like the scene when they're all around the table with the government officials or sort of mocking them and being like, what did you really see?
But I think that's the government just trying to undermine him. They know exactly what he said. They know exactly what he saw.
Right. It's very about it. Yeah, it's interesting now in the context of, they actually mentioned this in Note, but it is real. We know that there was a government cover up.
Yeah.
There was this big New Yorker piece, like there was an expose talking about how the government deliberately undermined stories of UFOs and discredited the people
because they don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And that's, Angel actually brings that up, which is, oh, no, they're not UFOs now, they're UAPs. What the hell does that mean? Well, that's just, we're changing the name so that you're not quite, we've built up this lore, UFOs. So now we're just going to change the name. So it's a little more innocuous. And it's like, oh, that's just our government name for him.
And Roland D. LeBay shows up to ruin everything in this movie as well by bringing up Bigfoot at the.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the thing. It's so funny because this is actually the 3rd time we've seen Robert's Blossom this year, because he's also in The Quick and the Dead.
Yes. Yes.
Like he sort of does the discrediting for them. Right. Because he's such obviously like a crackpot. And so then the government, they don't have to do anything else now. Right. Like, oh, there's this guy and all the papers are taking pictures of him and writing down what he's saying. And now everybody knows that all these people who believe in aliens are just nuts.
Which really underlines that scene at the beginning when the smaller ships are causing havoc and the power's going out everywhere. And you hear the air traffic controllers talking to some pilots up there who have a close encounter. And at the end, the guy asks him, do you want to report a UFO? And there's like silence. Yeah. Nope. Don't want to report one of those.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, even, the military, they actually, were blackballing some of these guys who are coming forward and actually, making aware of some of these encounters that they've experienced. But let's talk about that opening scene. Because you talk about Taika Waititi and you talk about Peele and Christopher Nolan and these guys who all had these visions. Again, this was Spielberg as a child. He was in his mid-20s. This opening sequence where you get the planes in the desert and then it cuts to that traffic control. And it's like, it's chaos after chaos, but cinematically, it is gorgeous. When that Jeep comes out of the sand with the headlights and you don't know what's going on, the guys are getting out of the Jeep, they're running around, they find the planes. And as a kid, I was obsessed with Bigfoot. I was obsessed with the Bermuda Triangle. So I knew what those planes were. That was the missing Flight 19 out of Fort Lauderdale that was apparently lost over the Bermuda Triangle. They have not found those ships to this day.
That we know of.
It's just this won Best Cinematography, an Oscar for this. And, the cacophony that's going on with those air traffic controllers, and these guys are experiencing something, and it's just a bunch of talking heads with little blips on the screen. And yet you're like, what is going on here? I don't need to see aliens. I don't need to see the spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Then again, like there's a lot of really nice little things. Like there's a great scene where Barry is like reacting to the sight of the aliens in his kitchen. You don't see it. He's just smiling,
See, it's kind of ruined for me now, only because I've seen this movie numerous times and I know it's Spielberg behind the scenes in a little bear costume where he's pulling out toys or whatever.
Trying to make him smile.
But this kid was known as One Take Barry or whatever his real name was there.
Mm-hmm.
That this kid, he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Why this kid didn't go on to actually, who was it that wanted him? Kubrick wanted him for The Shining, but he was already committed to another movie. So this kid could have gone on. He could have played Danny.
I was starting to say, and I got distracted talking about the different versions of the film. Yeah. So you guys talk about Spielberg was only in his 20s. He said that if he had made this movie after he'd become a father, he never would have had Roy leave his family.
Yeah.
Because, he's like, I didn't think about that then.
Yeah.
I didn't think about like what it would be like. I always think about, you imagine that you're Ronnie, right? You've taken your kids to your sister's. You're still in your nightgown, right? So at some point you come back to the house.
Yeah.
And Roy is gone and there's a giant model of the Devil's Tower in your living room, right? And he just disappears off the face of the earth.
And that's it. He's gone. Right.
Yeah.
There's no record of where this guy goes.
Yeah.
It's romantic in the sense that, he's fulfilling. He's now he's going to find out what's really what did I witness? It was real. But to the rest of the world, you're just gone.
He's a missing person.
Footnote. You're a footnote. Like I said, these kids are in therapy for the rest of their freaking lives. Anytime someone brings up Pinocchio, they're probably going to go into PTSD.
And they're just kind of like a plot device that need to be gotten rid of in order for Roy to have his close encounter. That's how they're treated, the family.
Yeah, it's a little nihilistic in that sense, which is you don't know what the motivations of these aliens are. You get no answer. Go back to your movie ended in ambiguity, which is he gets on the ship and that's the end of it. Then they go away.
Like how long is he gone for? Is he not going to be back for a century? Like
he's going to come back like these other guys 30 years from now, and his kids are going to be grown up and go, where are you? You're a piece of crap. And all these people that they brought back, like all their family is 40 years older now.
Yeah. And there's a lot actually that is not fully explained in here.
Oh yeah. Those pilots are never going to see their family again. They're going to be detained for the rest of their lives. They're never getting out. Yeah.
Yeah. We got to hold you. We got some questions.
Yeah. You thought the probing was bad?
Well, they all seemed happy. I mean, what were they doing up there? What were they doing with these aliens all this
Kumbaya.
time?
I said it before.
Yeah. They're Hare Krishna. The aliens? Jehovah's Witness?
Probably, maybe time was like 5 minutes for them. We're back already?
They're in for an even bigger shock then.
They only take Barry for like a blip compared to the other people,
a week. It's like a week. It's like,
one guy's holding his hand as they're coming down the ramp.
Well, that's because they didn't want him to slip off the ramp.
That was a nice touch.
The kid, I did read an interview where he was embarrassed because he had to wear slippers because he was going to slide off.
But that would be a whole other story, right? As to what happens to these people. And that's part of why Spielberg pushed back on that special edition. He didn't want to tell you what it looked like in that ship.
The special edition brings absolutely nothing to the table. Yeah, so he walks inside the ship and you get some lights and whatever. And it's
talk about studio interference, wanting that in there.
But again, they threw how many dollars at him to add this on to the end 3 years later.
Yeah.
It does nothing. It does absolutely nothing for it.
But I think the highlight of this movie for me is the beginning, is that chaos that those smaller ships cause when Roy first sees them. Like when he's the lineman, he's the Wichita lineman out on the road trying to read his map. And I love it to this day. I've seen it a million times, but the lights come up behind him and then goes up.
Visually, it is very, very impressive. And it's very cinematic, and the mailboxes. Ding, ding,
yep,
ding,
he
ding,
sees
ding, ding.
the ship going overhead, and then in the distance, this is probably my favorite scene. What looks like lightning further down the road, but it's them like shining down the road, and you hear that like buzzing noise, which is kind of the closest shot that you get to that ad campaign. That's actually in the movie.
Right.
And the interesting thing about that scene is like later when they're all waiting on on the curve to see the ships come back and they see the lights in the distance and they all think it's the aliens, but then it's the helicopter. And then the sign starts shaking the same way it did under the aliens. And you see this sort of look in Roy's eyes, like maybe I didn't see what I think I saw. You know, maybe it was just a helicopter. And I like that because it presents sort of like this little moment of doubt, like maybe, you know.
But then all he has to do is look in the mirror, because I love what he says to Ronnie. He's like, what do you think this is? A moon burn?
Yeah, it is. You know, again, going back to Spielberg, you see the genesis of the government guys in E.T. running around where all you're seeing are the keys. You know, some of the scenes are very Indiana Jones reminiscent. There's a lot of stuff percolating here that he brings forward into a lot of his other movies later.
Including a guy who runs and hides in the toilet at the end. This guy sprints past Roy to run into the porta potty to hide. Yes. And it's the same thing
or
with Gennaro in Jersey. Or
I'm bringing that back.
Or they had like a mobile Taco Bell at the... He's like, can you please ask those aliens to wait? I've got to go. Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I ask.
Yeah. Oh, man. I'm going to say right now that this is probably one of John Williams' best scores ever. This really is phenomenal listening to this. I was very happy watching this again.
Now, was I just trying to create this? The Jaws theme?
No, it's there.
In the ship, when the ships are they're going back and forth?
The four little notes are there. I caught it for the very first time ever. I'm like, wow. And I did point out before we actually hit record, R2-D2 is clear and present on the ship as it's going over Devil's Tower. And what's the girl's name? Jillian. Mm-hmm. You see R2-D2 upside down, clear as day. And the model makers who ILM were also coming off from Star Wars also included a shark. And I believe that there is a TIE fighter and a cemetery and like a little truck bus or whatever. And you can see this model. This model is at the Air and Space Museum in Virginia. And I talked about, seeing the Millennium Falcon model up close. This thing is just chock full of details. It is fantastic.
Based on an oil refinery.
Yeah, think about all the spires and the lights and stuff like that. Yeah.
We haven't even talked about Francois Truffaut.
No.
The great French director who, honestly, when you watch special features, I feel like all anybody talks about is like Francois Truffaut. Like, and Truffaut was on set. Like even Carrie Guffey, who was 3 years old at the time, talks about meeting him and how kind he was and like how gentle he was with kids. And, like everybody's just like in awe that Truffaut is on their set. And Bob Balaban, like, the first time you see this, you're like, there he is. Like, he's in everything. Bob Balaban. He's just in all the movies.
And I love how he gives that Spielberg explanation. I'm a cartographer. And then, later, you can almost anticipate the audience saying, huh?
What's a cartographer?
A map maker. Oh.
Right. Yeah.
But he actually wrote a book called Spielberg, Truffaut, and Me about his experience on the set doing this. And apparently it's very, it's out of print now, unfortunately, but apparently it's very like sort of like nice, like to behind the scenes stories, but not gossipy or like bitter in any
juicy
way.
Tidbits.
Yeah. Which is interesting because the producer of this film, one of the producers of this film, Julia Phillips, who was the first woman to ever win Best Picture Oscar for The Sting. She later wrote a very dishy tell-all called You'll Never Eat Lunch in This Town Again. She called out everybody who had ever wronged her in Hollywood.
The one where Truffaut were his character. Mm-hmm. There's the one false note in this, because I do think that his addition like adds some mystery. And exactly as Roy says, who are you people? Because this is the first time this has happened, as far as we know, the audience, right? That this contact has been made. And the ships are not there for maybe 5 minutes, where he's out there impatiently, let's go, to the ships, where's your Spielbergian wonder, that this is even happening? That was the only false note where he's like acting impatient that the ships aren't actually.
Well, he's been chasing these damn things. He finally got them.
But he's finally, there they are. That should be your gift right here, they're even
right
there.
You're right here.
Yeah.
Did you see one person with a camera? Oh, there were videotapes.
There were several.
They were video. Yeah. I hope that they were non-battery.
Yeah.
And I love how Jillian is very determinedly taking photos at the end. She's like,
Yes.
I am going to prove that I am not insane.
She got her Oprah shot.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
she's taking pictures to make sure that everybody knows, and nobody knows she's up there, right? Because she's like away with Barry. She's like moving away from the crowd. So it's, I always find that interesting too.
I watched this before going to see Nope. And it's just interesting to see some of the differences but that the two filmmakers make, because we're talking about Jordan Peele not giving you everything.
Mhm.
Well, Spielberg, on the other hand, tries to explain everything minutely. Like, for example, the cartographer thing. He doesn't assume that the audience knows what that is. So he's going to tell them you're a map maker. When he's looking at the shaving cream, I know this means something. This is important, But Peele would never do that. Peele would never do that.
No, you're right. He would just look at it and then put it on top of a pie.
I do have to say though, I love I don't think either of you guys have been to Devil's Tower, right?
No, I wanted to bring this up though, because I know you have.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting choice for the film, like so perfect in a way, because it is such a unique feature in that landscape. When you're driving to it, just when you're approaching it, you can start to see it from the distance, very tiny, where you're like looking off in the distance, you see this thing that looks like it's like an inch high, but it sticks out so much from the rest of the landscape around it. It's such a good object, I think, for the filmmakers, because it's so unique. There's nothing else that looks like it. It's by itself. And it becomes, it's such a good object, I think, because it's obvious that the aliens have like implanted this somehow in the brains of people who've seen them, because all these people are obsessed and they're drawing it and sculpting it and doing all this stuff, and they don't understand why, but it's such a unique feature. It's a really cool place to see. I was so excited.
I can't imagine like coming up on it, and even it's a very iconic at this point. It is America's first national monument.
Yes,
1906.
Let me tell you, I watched Close Encounters with my son, who was enthralled by it, and he asked me, like, especially when the scene where he's building it in his living room, and it's like, is that a real place? Or is that just made up for the movie? I'm like, oh, that's a real place.
No, you
like, where is that?
Let's go. We gotta go. Yeah. Well, I do. They play this movie every night at the foot of this in one of the campgrounds.
That's what
Apparently, this is the most screened movie in the history of the world, because
there's a KOA like kind of right outside of the park entrance, and they play like you can see Devil's Tower.
Come on, I mean, how great is that? Like, if you're gonna be there, that's what you want to see. You're like, there it is, it's right there, it's right there. Yeah, I think it'd be awesome.
It's a cool place to go to, obviously, if you love the movie, but it's also just a cool place to go to because it's just so unique looking.
It's a very, very right for Native Americans as well. It's a very hallowed.
So this is a cool story, actually. So Native people do not call it Devil's Tower. That is like a name that was imposed on it by white people who misinterpreted.
Well, it's actually a butte, but you can't call it Devil's Butt. No.
But the Lakota people call it Bear Lodge. Some other people who live in the area call it different things. They have different stories around it. But the story that I heard is that the reason why they call it Bear Lodge is because there were a bunch of girls who were being chased by giant bears, and they climbed a big rock and they prayed to the Great Spirit to be saved from the bears. And so the Great Spirit raised the rock up into the heavens, and the long marks are the claws of the bear that were trying to get at the girls. And then the girls continued to rise up into the sky, and they became the Pleiades, the seven sisters, that constellation in the sky. So it's just a beautiful story that's told. And all around on the trails, there are different offerings that have been like tied to the trees and stuff. Like, it's very sacred. And they have all these like notes and markers around, like, do not touch these objects. Like, these are sacred objects put there by Native people who've come here to pray. It feels, I think, sacred because it, like I said, it's so unique. It's so unusual in this space. Also, if you love prairie dogs, there are little prairie dog towns all around on the roads, driving up to the tower. You can get out and see the prairie dogs.
I'd be more concerned about the giant bear.
But it's just a fabulous visual.
Yeah,
you couldn't have made up a better visual for this movie.
Yeah.
And it's just something so iconic for these characters to key in on, to try to recreate, because it's unmistakable. It's not just a mountain.
Yeah.
It's unmistakable.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, Samwise would not appreciate the blatant wasting of potatoes, regardless of what they're being made to look like.
She made a hell of a lot of potatoes, my friend. That's a lot of potatoes, Mom.
So let's talk about the evacuation of the surrounding area. The government needs to get everybody out. So they go to the length of spraying sleeping gas. So it knocks out the farm animals. So anybody that does get through will see what they think are dead animals. Now, okay. So here is my big question. Once they finally get stopped, after they go off-roading and they drive through barbed wire fences, and they finally get stopped by the government in their vans, who all have hazmat suits on. Now, there's nothing wrong with the air. Why do they have hazmat? But anyway, they have a cage of pigeons or whatever, birds, canaries. They take them out of the car. I mean, does the guy have a spray bottle of the sleeping gas?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here you
Oh, sorry, they're dead. Yeah.
I love that scene because it's like, even when you think it's the end of the world, there's some con artist there trying to like sell something to you.
It's like that guy in Manhattan that sells umbrellas for $5 in a minute. It rains, they're 30.
That's the
like, I got all these gas masks right here.
Those damn birds. That's the Ben Gardner moment for me. It's like, how did Jaws behead Ben Gardner and leave his head in the boat?
He fell overboard and he was trying to climb back in.
So there's this big subterfuge where the government has to get everybody out of the area. So they make up the story of nerve gas that's been leaked.
There was a list, right? Isn't there a list of like potential?
Well, there's a scene where they go through it. Like,
what's our storyline going to be here?
But this thing is so massive. It's hard to believe that somebody, even at a distance, wouldn't see this coming down.
There is a cheat. There's a beautiful cheat when this thing comes up from behind the butte, because there's no, what is it, underground, and then it comes up. But it visually, it does.
Matter. They do try to say that it's like hidden by like atmospheric, maybe it's self-imposed atmospheric, just like the alien in Nope. In Nope, yeah.
Cloud.
So they come out of the clouds. But, talk about seeing the dinosaurs for the first time shot. Everybody's full of wonder. You don't like these government guys. So like to have them full of wonder, you're like, I don't like these guys to begin with. Why should they be experiencing this?
As an audience, you're on Roy's side.
And then you got Lance Henriksen with his firearm there. Like, what is he going to shoot some of these aliens that come out? Yeah.
And we had Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers. Yep. Carl Weathers is there. Yeah. He's going to shoot some looters, Mr. Weathers.
I just read that Jerry Garcia is an extra in the India crowd scene.
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to have to go back and look for him now and just look for the cloud around him.
No, when he points, it's just a stubby finger when he points up at this guy. But also, getting back to Truffaut's character, Lacombe. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that he says to Roy, because he is arguing that the 12 people that have risked life and limb to get to Devil's Tower should be there.
Yeah.
That they've been invited. And
correct. Again, it's back to the aliens. Like, why are you sending messages to quote unquote nobodies? I mean, you could have just abducted, just taken half of the military guys that are there.
And then
you want just civilian people? What do you like? Their motivations are nondescript at all.
And so Jillian and Roy and this other guy, Larry, who is dressed in his 70s finest, like a cardigan sweater and bell bottoms, not exactly the clothes that you wear, to go rock climbing. So they escape from the helicopter until they spray the sleeping gas. Jillian and Roy somehow manage to avoid the sleeping gas.
You just jump above it.
Roy eventually, and then Jillian afterwards, sneak down into the arena, for lack of a better word.
Indian strip.
And then Lacombe sees Roy and is happy that Roy is there. Like, you managed to come.
Oh, you made it.
Yeah.
You won the lottery, my friend.
Then he says, I envy you. Because he's chosen. And these other guys, they just figured it out scientifically that that's where the aliens are coming. But also,
just like
think
in
of it this
Contact,
way.
you're sending coordinates.
Yeah, well, think of it this way. Looking at it from the aliens' point of view, they have these travelers that are volunteers or whatever that are all dressed up in their Star Trek red shirts, right, to get on the alien ship. Think of the aliens, like when the doors open and these people come, they're like gate crashers. Like, who are you? We didn't invite you. You're not welcome here. And that's why when Roy comes in, they're all like, they've got his arms up and they're like, this is the guy that we want.
The guy.
Not these. And this is a joke that I'm going to repeat from episode number 2. But what are in those overnight packs? Exactly.
Toothbrush, change of underwear. Easy.
Preparation H, some salve.
Oh, a little probing going on.
10 years worth.
Sign here. Do you get your own room?
Well, we haven't talked about the iconic 5-note theme. I was reading that they went through like 300 5-note variations until Spielberg chose the right one that Williams had presented to him.
And they're very iconic now.
Oh, yeah. And just the whole back and forth. It's that tennis match of sound. The brilliant conceit of the board behind the keyboardist, where the colors are lighting up as he's pressing the notes, which alternate with the colors coming off the spaceship. It's just visually, it's just epic. I love that back and forth.
Nowadays, those would just be emojis.
Yeah.
Poop emojis. Ray Bradbury declared this the greatest science fiction film ever made. Ray Bradbury. Well, listen, there's been plenty of movies that'll come after this, but Ray Bradbury speaks. I do like the fact that Spielberg does get writing credit for this, but Paul Schrader wrote it. And then Spielberg changed it to the point where Schrader's like, all right, this is no longer my movie and I'm taking my name off it.
This was a huge hit, 19.4 million to make, which was a lot more than Columbia had signed up for. And this is bizarre as well, to see a Spielberg movie with the Columbia logo up front, and it's not Universal or Paramount or something, because if you haven't seen Close Encounters in a long time, like I forgot, it's a Columbia movie, which just doesn't seem to fit Spielberg for some reason. But apparently this deal was made before Jaws, so he had a deal with Columbia to make this sci-fi movie. 19.4 million to make. I think he had said that it would cost like 2 or 3.
That's a little over budget.
And I read something where some suit at Columbia had said if we had known what it was going to cost, we never would have greenlit it because we didn't have the money to make it.
But again, if Star Wars had not come out prior to this, it might not have had the foot traffic that it did. Because Star Wars really kind of catapulted that whole idea that anything in space is going to make money. Yeah, I do remember as a kid, my parents had friends who saw this in the drive-in, and I wish I knew what it was paired with, but I remember specifically the husband coming back and complaining that it was boring and he fell asleep. And I'm like, I can't wait to see this now. But again, this is one of those this is one of these movies that I never saw in the theater. I never saw in the drive-in. It probably was until it dropped on HBO and I was able to watch it at my grandfather's house, but I had the novel and read the book with the little pictures and the 4 or 5 pages of colored photos leading into it.
Yeah. And if you ever picked up an issue of Famous Monsters or Starlog, you knew what the aliens looked like before you saw this movie. Yeah,
let's talk about those aliens for a bit because Rambaldi.
He is going to be the bane of this show because we did not give him his proper due when we talked about King Kong.
We got Kong. But Carlo Rambaldi, he was integral in the design and machinations of these extraterrestrials, and I guess Spielberg was quite taken with the facial features and what could be done with these.
Well, I think from what I read that they started thinking that they were all going to be puppets and marionettes, and they only did that.
You did
the big one,
the big tall one, which is very obvious that it's a marionette. At one point, I read that they were talking about putting orangutans on roller skates, and anytime they put the monkey in a roller skate, it would have
talk about shades of Nope. That would have been a bad idea.
Yeah.
Well, outside of these sleeping cows, I think the only thing was the dog, which was he showed up. He was in Jaws. He was Brody's dog. That was.
I love the fact that they dressed up little 6-year-old girls as the aliens.
Yes, yeah. And most of the shots are far away, and I think that they actually kind of shot them with like a Sybil Shepherd filter, so that they have that kind of ethereal. You're not really seeing super details on these guys, just like Bigfoot is always out of focus.
Is that the actual name of the filter? Like, did the cameraman go in the store? I'll take the Sybil Shepherd. No, not the Barbara Streisand.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
the Sybil Shepherd.
Sybil Shepherd. Yeah, with the little Vaseline around the outside. So, but Ralph McQuarrie, we talked about him. He was the conceptual artist on the actual mothership. But you got to talk about Doug and Don Trumbull, who did the visual effects and a lot of the model works. Pretty impressive stuff.
The original theatrical version apparently wasn't enough for Columbia. They wanted Spielberg to show the inside of the mothership. So hence the special edition, which was released in theaters in 1980, 3 years later. Between the 77 release and the 1980 release, it made like $300 million at the box office. Huge hit.
Monstrous. Yeah.
And then Spielberg wasn't happy because the studio kind of strong-armed him into showing the inside of the mothership. And he never was happy with that because he felt that it should have remained a mystery. And I agree. So he came out with a director's cut in 98.
But like you said, it did not have the Pinocchio scene. And I guess I just assumed that maybe I saw it because, I mean, I watched the theatrical, but they were tweaking these movies even after they're being released in theaters because back then it was film. So you actually had to make a print. You had to mail this damn thing out. And those things weigh a ton. So, yeah, there are different versions.
And I also love this story. I always am interested with these classic movies to see who maybe would have gotten cast if they didn't go with the original actor. Jesse Plemons, yeah. You're right. How'd you know?
He was a kid.
Steve McQueen was originally considered. He turned it down. James Caan, Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, Gene Hackman. Nicholson turned it down. Can you imagine Nicholson as Roy Neary?
I feel like he turned down more than he actually made. I feel like he's in every conversation.
So this was all taking place like before and during the filming of Jaws, right? Because this movie was, in his mind, in the forefront of Spielberg's mind. And I'm sure he probably told quite a few people on the set of Jaws about, what he wanted to do for his next movie.
That's why Dreyfuss.
And that's how Dreyfuss lobbied himself for the part. And I love this because every day he would say something, he would try to shoot down all these other actors. Well, Stephen, Pacino has no sense of humor.
He's got his ear 24/7.
And then the next day, Stephen, Nicholson, he's too crazy. You can't cast him. He's too crazy. So finally,
Richard Dreyfuss
he badgered
sabotages everyone else's career.
But I think he's better. He's better than any of those guys would have been in this part.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's almost like, like Spielberg's Avatar, in a way, like the way that he plays this part, I feel like is the way Spielberg feels about the material, right? The way he feels about the idea of the aliens. And it's also interesting because he did not want to be in Jaws. And Spielberg had to convince him to do Jaws. He was like, I'd like to see that movie, but I don't want to be in it, because he was looking at the script and going, this is going to involve being on the ocean for days and days filming. And he didn't want to do that. But he really wanted to be in this movie.
Spielberg called it twice as bad and expensive as filming Jaws. I don't know exactly how, but apparently it was much more stressful than even Jaws was.
I don't know. It sounds like Jaws was pretty pretty harrowing.
I mean, he always just talked about how horrible the filming was for that. Everybody who was on set is like, it was horrible.
Dreyfuss has got a 20-minute spiel on it.
The shark is not working.
And he also says that once NASA got wind that he was making this movie, They wrote him a 20-page letter saying how dangerous it was for him to be making a UFO movie.
You're getting a little too close.
And
to the
he
money,
says that once Spielberg he said that once he read this, he was convinced he was doing the right thing. He's like, they're hiding something. If they're writing me a 20-page letter saying how dangerous
I would love to see documents now that actually call out Spielberg by name.
Right.
UAP.
And now we know they were hiding something.
So the movie takes place originally in Indiana, correct? Is that where the Norys live? Yeah. Filmed in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
With a banjo on his knee.
I just read something about the house. The studio purchased it just so they were able to do whatever they want with the interiors. And then when the filming was over, they sold it for like a 30% profit. But it's still there, the house that they filmed.
Is the mountain still in its living room?
That would be great. Imagine that. Like you walk in, over here, we've got the Devil's Tower. Yeah, I don't know. I think part of that budget went to a $2,500 globe. Like that's a pretty expensive globe. $11,000 in today's money.
Spielberg was actually going to use the original When You Wish Upon a Star to play over the closing credits. Yeah. But at a test audience screening in Texas, it got snickers when that came up. So he decided to take it out.
Damn Texans.
Williams nominated twice against himself at the Oscars in '78 for this and Star Wars, of course. And he won for Star Wars.
I think he won a Saturn Award for this, though. The music.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys are fans of Miyazaki's Castle in the Sky, but the end shot of Castle in the Sky where Laputa is floating away is very, very much an homage to the end of this, where you're watching the ship slowly disappear while the credits roll over it.
I read that he was partially inspired by the fact when he was a little kid, his parents did usher the whole family into the car in the middle of the night to race out to go watch a meteor shower.
Oh.
Doesn't mean his dad abandoned him and left him for the meteors, but it is. I get it that it is dated in some ways. It does seem a little slow in places, but I'll tell you, it is a spectacular.
Yeah, I like it now better than I did when I was younger.
You know, like you said, Spielberg has said, if I made this movie now, it would not be the same movie.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't make this movie now. So, right. You see this. And I think as a kid, I probably didn't appreciate it half as much as I do now.
That's why I was shocked when my son watched it. And the minute it was over, he went upstairs and I could hear him playing the theme on his keyboard.
See, but yeah, that's a good job on your part in exposing them to this stuff.
But yeah, as a kid myself, I kind of thought it was long-winded and boring compared to a Jaws or a Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, or a Star Wars.
So that's why I've never really held it in my head as one of my grails, like I would another Spielberg movie. But as an adult, it's gained traction with me.
Yeah.
So buckets for Close Encounters? Would any of us go the ultimate? A 5 bucket for any one of us here?
5. I would go 4.5. I still think these aliens are jerks.
I too would say 4.5. This is a movie I hold in very high regard. And actually the shot of Jillian running through the field after the ship, I think, is one of the most beautiful shots in all of cinema history.
Yeah. If I gave Nope 3 3/4, I'm going to have to go at least a quarter above that one for this. Undeniably a classic. 4 buckets on this one. Close Encounters. I think we've done it justice.
We have done it justice, and we probably still left plenty of talking points off the table, but whatever. It's
we don't need to recap the whole special features disc for the audience. They can go out and see it for themselves.
Is this available for streaming? I think it's on Amazon.
Yeah, I don't think it's on Prime. Version. I don't think it's on Prime, but it's definitely on there. Yeah, for streaming. You pay $3-4 for it.
Right. Yeah. No, I did get the Blu-ray from my library.
Yeah, so did I.
Which had all 3 versions. And what's interesting is that mine actually had little icons in the corner to tell you if this was from the special edition or if this was.
Oh, really?
That was a feature that you could turn on. It was called like a view from above.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep. So there you go. Yeah, you can watch this 4 times and it's a completely different movie every time. Mm-hmm. It's like choose your own adventure. So there you go.
All right, guys. What else did we do this week?
I had the coolest Thematically appropriate. What else I did this week?
You're abducted?
I was not abducted.
Okay.
However, I did go to see at the Chicago Shakespeare Theater. It Came from Outer Space, the
What?
musical.
Get out of here.
Yes.
Really? I
Yes.
didn't even know this is a thing.
It just happened to be this week.
Oh my God.
I was like, perfect timing for this. Yeah, so it's based on the Bradbury film,
Yeah.
from the 50s. It's wonderful. It's going to play in Chicago for a little bit longer. So if you live in Chicago, go out and try to get tickets to see it this weekend. It's really a fun experience. They made it a musical, and then they tried to incorporate all of the kind of fun elements from the film because it was in 3D, and in the film, it's like put on your 3D glasses now.
Yeah. Oh,
So
wow.
this shot come up, like there's a screen behind the actors because they changed the backgrounds, and there's a shot that comes up that says put on your 3D glasses now, and then they throw like foam rocks at the audience.
I love it.
Really, really, really fun. I don't know if it will travel or if it will ever be in another place.
A little immersive, huh? That's
But
pretty
if
cool.
you guys ever have a chance to see this was so much fun.
Wow.
And so perfect considering the theme of this week's films.
Nice. I like it.
Well, I watched another bad horror movie.
Mhm.
This
Shudder?
one is called, this one
Are
is
we
called
once again-
Without Warning, starring Martin Landau and Jack Palance.
Mhm.
And this was a blatant Alien ripoff, but it combined hikers with Alien.
Wait, what year
Actually
is this?
stars Kevin Hall as the alien.
Oh, get out of here.
Oh, wow.
This guy's typecast, huh?
So
Either
this
Bigfoot
came
or
out-
alien.
This came out in 1980, and he looks like the alien outfit or makeup is total Megamind, because he's got a giant blue head and he's got a cape. So what the
jeez.
setup is that this alien has set up shop in the mountains and is hunting hikers. Its weapon are these flying organic discs that look completely like ripoff of the face hugger from Aliens. So he throws them like frisbees, and they attach themselves to the human victim and pump them with some kind of, I don't know, but it kills them. And then he takes the humans as trophies. So it's these hikers that go into the woods and they find all these dead bodies. And Jack Palance is the local that tries to help the hikers. And Martin Landau is the crazy local that sides with the alien who gets killed anyway by the alien. So he's like the Ash character. But yeah, it's called Without Warning. It was very bad. Very bad. But I reveled in it anyway.
Okay. All right. Oh my gosh. Well, I should be talking about the fact that I finished Stranger Things, Umbrella Academy, and Ms. Marvel, but I have not because I'm a little scattered. I actually started watching Only Murders in the Building. I completely forgot.
Oh yeah,
Hulu.
I started the first season of that.
So I just happened to be sitting down one night and boom, I come across it and I'm like, you know what? I said, I'm going to watch this. And they're only half an hour episodes. Steve Martin Short, and Selena Gomez, all three who are executive producers on this, by the way. And it's very enjoyable. I'm one episode away from finishing season one. And it's basically about these three people who live in apartment buildings. They are true crime fans, and they get together to start a podcast to basically try and unravel this death that happens in their apartment building. And I am enjoying it immensely. You got Nathan Lane in there and Sting, potential killers. So it's fun. It definitely takes a couple twists and turns, and highly recommend it. And it just got nominated for a bunch of Emmys. So there you go. So I jumped on top of that.
All right.
Yeah.
So next week, what are we covering?
Oh, I think the show's going to the dogs next week.
And the cats.
And the cats. Cats and dogs.
That is not the name of the movie that we're watching.
That is not the name of the movie.
I don't even know the name of the movie that we're watching.
DC League of Super Pets.
DC League of Super Pets.
Yeah, not Justice League of Super Pets, just League of Super Pets. Animated feature with Kevin Hart, Dwayne Johnson. Who else is in it? I don't remember.
Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves is in it. Does he play Cat?
No, he's Batman.
Is he?
Yes.
That's right. I don't. Okay. Yeah. Like I'm supposed to. I just know that there's super pets. I'm fingers crossed that Beepo the monkey shows up.
What about Gleek?
I think Gleek was a ripoff of Beepo. Beepo came first, so I don't know.
I don't know Beepo. I know Gleek.
Beepo. I think he was like the Superman super monkey. Good thing it's animated. Otherwise, we're back in Nope territory. But yes, we are going animated. And then somebody chose a Disney film.
I just thought for fun, and I also thought, we all have Disney Plus and it's available.
That is true, but it's a good call. I like it. I cannot tell you the last time I saw this movie.
I have no idea how it will hold up. I don't think I've watched it since my son was little, but I was thinking, well, he's kind of a super pet. So the cat from outer space.
I like it. Jodie Foster's not in that, right?
No.
Is she? No,
I don't think so.
Tatum O'Neal?
No.
Nobody?
No.
No?
No.
I'm grasping the straw.
Or Haley Mills.
Or Haley Mills. Oh, no, she was in That Darn Cat. That Darn Cat.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell, anybody?
Kurt Russell?
Who else?
He was a shoe. Throwing out names at this point.
Okay. Don Knotts? No.
Oh, Ghost of Mr. Chicken? Mrs. Chicken?
Fred McMurray? No, we do have Sandy Duncan.
She's in there, Sandy Duncan?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. It's been a long time. How old is this movie? 1979?
Pretty old. Yeah.
80, 81, maybe?
78, I want to say.
78. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. All right. So next week, the League of Super Pets and the Cat from Outer Space.
Awesome.
So we hope that you join us.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. teepublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
No, I think that these aliens are jerks.